All right, so Tom Brady a little bit in news based on his criticism, I want to say, while also being trying to be helpful, I think, at the same time. So basically, Tom Brady was talking about basically these young quarterbacks being rushed and thrown into the fire early. And to be honest, it's sort of a backhanded compliment where he's like, "Hey," or not, maybe not a backhanded compliment, but a backhanded statement of basically trying to say, "Hey, we shouldn't be throwing out these young kids or these young quarterbacks um, in the fire and rushing them out too early." On one hand, if he would have left it at that, everybody'd be like, fair point. Because of sort of the reasoning of just why are they being thrown in there and whatnot. Like, is it really just because they're just that good or all the other stuff, which I'll get to in a minute. But then he also said because basically they're getting in there because we have dumbed the game down, and that's where all the hoopla that people got has decided to come in. Now, what he said, I actually think that I was like, he's right about. I think that, so I was like, for instance, like on Get Up, and I was like, when they had a crew of Darlington, Hasselback, Foxworth, is that they was on the opposite, they was on the side of you sound like an old head, and which in this day and age, if you an old head, you basically just like get off my lawn and you don't have any right to say anything because you're old or whatever. When it's like, okay, when it's, on one hand it's like y'all believe some of these people are way too young to have the wisdom and experience, but at the same time the people that you would think have the wisdom and experience has no credibility at the same time. That's just old head statement, whatever. Cool. So it's like on one, so then they're just talking about like, oh, you don't think they were dumb quarterback back in your day? You don't think that, kind of talking about the dumbing down the game. That basically that when you came in, all you were doing was handing the ball off. You wasn't doing nothing special, and basically like what do you mean by? I was like dumbing down the game. That you thought like there was like crazy concept in, and but then we had like the next day with people, where it was like the Woodies and Orlowskis and stuff like that, and they kind of was like, no, he's right. The game has been, and I think, and look, the real problem here is saying dumbed down. If he would have said simplified, I don't think people would have gave it that much noise. But because he said dumbed down, guess what? You say certain key words, everybody ready to go for a tussle. And but with that, I was like, I don't think that I was like, and I was like, Alaska and all them hit on there. I was like hit on points that I thought were really well. That I was obviously thinking about when I heard like, there wasn't any nuance to it. That one I was like, like they brought up basically like, oh, back in your day there was dumb quarterbacks, stuff like that. It's like, yeah, but that's how you weeded out the dumb quarterbacks is because things were complicated. Like, I mean, like I was like the day, to be honest, it's simplified, and not just simplified, but it's also it's and it's like you see this in not just with football, but all sports. I was like, you can do this with basketball, you can do this in music, you can do this in a lot of things where. And I was like, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it because I was like also been thinking about doing like this in general. But I was like, we have made things almost so easy for anybody to do and everybody to grab that it almost has not oversaturated, but like devalue things in a way where it's almost like I don't know. I have to figure out. But let's just stick with football. Is that basically okay? Cool, but like yeah, things were overcomplicated back in the day, and that's how you got rid of a lot of those quarterbacks. Whereas like nowadays, you really just don't have the same quarterbacks in the way just because of like it's based on your draft status or based on just really your opportunity, and even then, um, that doesn't matter. But I was like for instance, I remember when Cam Newton came out, and they talked about how basically the game was dumbed down then because everybody, and I was like, and you see how it is now where it's like it was the spread offense. Spread offense was coming into the NFL, and that basically was dumbing down the game. And then Cam Newton showed that you could do this, and once that, then we just kept on running with a lot of other quarterbacks. Because I was like, the quarterback before that, Sam Bradford, was doing a lot of pro type of concepts and things like that. Whereas all the quarterbacks pretty much after that started doing more spread because it was easier to be like, oh snap, like, because I was like the knock with Cam Newton and all that other stuff, but like, he wasn't the only quarterback that basically like, oh, they don't have the intelligence, that some of that old bull crap. But how do we do that? Oh, we just simplify and we just bring things from college over here, and they just start doing the spread, and then you start. That's why things because like the linebacker was slow and stuff like that. So, but guess what? And Orlowski sort of put in there that he's like with RPOs now. He's like the now you got mobile quarterbacks. So well now it's even up, hat on a hat type of thing. That it is easier because it's like we're not. You're not over here having these same complex things anymore. I remember when people were just like, oh, you only read one side of the field. I was like, that also used to be a thing. So it's like, Brady's not wrong in what he's saying. I was like, there's a reason also that we also would give him a hell of a lot of praise because it's like, look at him. He's on progression 4 out of the receivers. Guess what? You don't do. I'm like, how many of them really do that much anymore? Now I was like, cause you really just read a field. I was like a side of a field, or you sort of know already the coverage enough that you already know like, okay, they're doing this here to that, where this person over this, like who I'm supposed to throw to. And then you already sort of check up and you're like, okay, maybe not him. I was like, oh, that's a good matchup. I already like they already sort of know a little bit of these things, but let's not act like it hasn't been dumbed down or simplified in like the last like I want to say about 15, 20 years or so or whatever. But I was like, that's just also to be like, okay, cool. That way we're not, because I was like, also the rate that people were hitting on quarterbacks was just dropping for a long time. So also in that, guess what? We got to figure out a way to make it a little bit easier for these quarterbacks to come in and start playing. So we got to take that out, rip that out, take that out, rip that out. Like that was part of it. Also, the part that I was like they were talking about where I agree with is that the fact that it's like quarterbacks now versus back then, I was like, the reason they get thrown in the fire isn't just because you're great. Like that's what I was hating about the fact when it was the one group that was on Get Up versus the other is that they just made it sound like you are the starting quarterback because you're the best. They don't just give. I was like, you think they're just gonna play you if you're not smart? And it's like, shut the hell up. We know how some of this work. You a first round pick. Guess what? You about to get more than this fourth round pick here. Better chances, more opportunity. Hell, at quarterback, it is a wrap. I was like, if you're a first round quarterback, they're giving you all the chances to win. You think Caleb Williams was really in a quarterback competition with Tyler Bays or whatever, Baguette or whatever his name is? I was like, no, he's the first pick. He ain't in no quarterback competition. You think Jaden Daniels is in a quarterback competition? No, he's going to be the starting quarterback. Hell, to be honest, if JJ McCarthy didn't get hurt, I bet you. I was like, they might have been like, Sam Darnold's the starting quarterback. It'd have been about week 3 that you would have seen JJ in there. Bo Nix just got the starting quarterback spot over Zach Wilson. And you could be like, oh, well, Zach Wilson, sorry. It's like, oh, okay, cool. That's the game we're going to play. When it's like, no, it was going to be Bo Nix. He's a first-round quarterback. The reason Michael Penix ain't starting is just because Kirk Cousins is there and he signed a big deal. That's really about it. If it was like third year Kirk Cousins, it'd be Michael Penix probably going almost into the season. Because to be honest, like if Michael Penix would have went to the Raiders, he'd have beat out Gardner Minshew because he was top quarterback pick. That's all I'm saying. So I was like, don't give me this. I was like, Brock Purdy. I was like, as much flack as I give him or everybody gets him, guess what? He ain't starting when he just get drafted in the late ass round. Look how good Brock Purdy was playing. That we was like, oh man, you was been over here being like how did Garoppolo got it because of seniority, and because he's a fifth, and Purdy was like a 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant. If Brock Purdy was like a 2nd round pick, he'd have taken that spot over Jimmy Garoppolo. I know it was a weird contract thing or whatever. But still, let's not act that you get the job based on the fact that if you were the smarter guy or that you could really play. That might work. That'll work for a couple of the other spots. That work for some of the other positions. Where it's like best man wins. Not a quarterback. Not a quarterback. I'm tied to this dude. I was like, my job is tied to this dude. That's why they even get thrown out there too. Like you also add that in there. The fact that you throwing them in there because that coach, whenever he throws that in there, either his job is on the line or it's to save his. I was like, and it's to save his job. I was like, it's somewhat of that connection, like, or we're connected. We came in together or whatnot. Like, guess what? If it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers, Douglas and all them would have been out because of how the way Zach Wilson played, because he was that bad, and y'all are tied together. I was like, if Daniels doesn't play well with Washington, Quinn's gone as well too. I was like, like that is going to be how it is. Like, yeah, you can sort of get by if your rest of your team is good, or if you draft really well. I was like, yeah, but it's really because of that quarterback. So let's not act like you have to be like, oh man, these X's and O's, I got this, got that. As a quarterback, you don't. I was like, that's a little bit about draft status. And I was like, and guess what? And some of that is also too. That doesn't mean that he can't pick up the playbook. That doesn't mean that playbook isn't more than what he was having in college and stuff like that. That's not what it's saying. What it's saying is that Baylor Brady is like saying, like, from his time, it has been dumbed down, simplified, easier to comprehend, or whatever. And look, that doesn't also mean that once you're in the league a little bit more, that you add more to the playbooks if you can keep your coaches and stuff like that. That doesn't also mean what that is. That doesn't mean that it's like, hey. And also, too, is that really a bad thing? Think about it. Is it really a bad thing? Because anytime you're getting into something new, no matter if it's sports, no matter if it's your job, no matter if it's another study or whatever it is, you sort of want there to be a bit of baby steps before someone just throws you into the fire or whatever. You would prefer it that way. And if you got to be thrown into the fire, make it as easy as possible in order for me to get my job, my task. I was like, this win done. That's the whole goal of the game. I was like, so that's why at the same time, I'm like, it's really just out that one word. If he would have said simplify, nobody would really care that much. And everybody think that Brady's on his high horse or he just being old. And it's like, no. And it's all, I was like, the thing is like, what I hate with a lot of these things is that it was like rougher back in the day. It was tougher back in the day. Like that what happens is that we as we progress, we make things easier. We solve problems. We make things simpler. Like that's just how things go. So he's not wrong. I was like, guess what? They used to get rocked in the middle of the field. Guess what they don't do? That anymore. And that I was like, that sort of like making the game a little bit. I was like, I'm saying easier now. It does. I was like, it is sort of dumbing down the game a little bit. Offensive side, guess what? You don't have to worry about that no more. That's not an extra component, another variable that you got to worry about anymore. So therefore, it is a little. I was like, it is. It doesn't simplify it even more because now I will run through that middle compared to 10 years ago. Maybe not. Or maybe about 15 years ago, to be honest. I was like, guess what? But now the defense, now it hadn't been dumbed down for them. Now they got to actually, they got to do even more strategic, where it's like, how do I hit them? Where do I hit them? And all this other stuff. So I was like, look, give or take at different spots. But it's a lot of nothing over nothing, to be honest. I was like, I don't think that's the same. Because you can't have a lot of nothing over nothing. But, I mean, I guess you could just have an empty plate. Anyway, I'm like on a tangent. But listen, Tom Brady, I think, is speaking right. I was like, I think that this is one of those things where you're trying to defend the younger generation from these mean old people when he didn't really say anything that was too mean or really too out of bounds. It ain't like he just like, oh, all the ones coming in to suck. They sorry. They ain't got no real competition. It ain't like he over here saying it. He just saying that playbook is a lot thinner and they use crayons. That's all he's trying to say. But anyway, what do you think about what Tom Brady said or what any of these other people have said? I was like, do you agree that the game has been more dumbed down or simplified if you want to be nicer about it? Do you think that it's just as I'm like it's as easy as it sounds or whatnot? But anyway, that's all I got today. So anyway, peace out.